I've tried to record this video like 5 times now, and it keeps coming out as being 20 minutes plus long and really boring, so I thought I'd add beer and try it again. That beer's going to overflow now, isn't it? This is my attempt at automating the process of social interaction, because I am quite sick of being asked the same question again and again and again, and it would be nice just to direct people to a YouTube video. So the question I get asked is, what is the best lock? And people just want you to say, that one, buy that, and then all their problems go away. But obviously it's far more complicated than that. You know, what is a good lock for one application is a terrible lock for another application. And really, let's just break this down to the first video, which is how to choose a padlock. Not what is the best, but how to choose a padlock. So we're going to go for the domestic situation first, because frankly it's easier and it's the majority of questions. Most professional people go and buy very expensive locks, and then they put them into doors that are improperly hung so you can just jimmy them open. But regardless, for the domestic situation, most people, they've got fairly well secured houses these days. They've got composite doors, they've got multi-point locking systems, they've got great Euro cylinders, and it's pretty hard to get through. So most domestic applications, they're looking at padlocks for their garden furniture storage or shed, whatever, garden gate. So we're going to go through that. So the first thing we look at when we're trying to figure out what level of security we need for something is we look at the threat model, and that means who's trying to break in and why. If you've got a garden shed, then the odds are you're not going to get ex-Soviet spies trying to break in for the purposes of industrial espionage. You're probably going to get someone with one of these, and maybe one of these. I picked my first Masterlock with one of these. It was very effective. So there's no point in buying a very expensive padlock for a wooden shed where the shackle that you're using to clamp everything shut is going to just fall out of the wood as the wood splinters and flies everywhere when they apply one of these. So that's the first thing. Make sure your mounting hardware and the door is set up and mounted correctly in a way appropriate to what you're trying to protect. The other thing is picking. People see the lock-picking lawyer and they go, ooh, everything's shit. Because he goes, bup, 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 and we got it open. Which is great, except for the fact that if criminals had, or your garden variety criminal, had the conscientiousness and determination to learn how to pick properly, they'd probably already have a job. So really, the only things you care about are these. Your basic S-rake, your L-rake, and your triple peak Bogota. Those are the things that you can stick the dingus end in, give it a wiggle. They are the low skill attacks, and they're about the most that you're going to get from real lockpicking. Bumping is a threat, because again, put it in, tappy tap tap, it opens or it doesn't. It's a fairly straightforward and fairly stealthy attack. Snap guns, again, they're called pit guns. You're probably not looking at the ultrasonic things that are basically a dildo with a metal spike on the end. You're looking at the single throw snap guns that you put them in, snap, 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 and it opens or it doesn't. It's fairly quiet. They don't care about damaging the lock. It's fairly effective. So if you're buying a padlock, first thing you want to look at generally is how robust it is. Is it robust enough for what you're applying it to? And there is such a thing as going over the top and over securing something. We'll probably cover that when we get to Masterlocks. Does it have bump protection? That is a good question, and you should ask it. And does it have basic low-level pick protection? Those are important things that you need to consider with padlocks. So with that in mind, let's get to some actual locks. Oh, I don't know how long this has gone already because I've covered up the counter. So these are two locks that I would not use for anything ever. I bought these to learn how to pick. This is the first lock I ever picked. These have plastic cores. These are shite. If you use these to even hold something closed that you might need to get into, they will probably break at the worst possible moment, and you will find out how crap these shackles that say hardened on are because you will be sawing through them. Don't use these. Even for indoor things, even for light use, at some point they will fail. There's loads of different variations of this. There are some brand name ones that probably are better, but if they've got a plastic core on them, you don't want to touch them. They will break and they will screw you. Moving up, these sorts of things, these have all metal construction. They say hardened. I'll take their word on them for that. Actually, I did have a go at this with a file, and it's hardened, surprisingly enough. These are fine for keeping a cupboard locked against a 5 or 6 year old. Won't resist proper raking attacks, won't resist proper picking, but for low security stuff, these are fine. I would actually put these in a similar box as Masterlocks. Why? Because if you just want to keep something closed, these are fine. They're actually really quite robust, which is why we use them for repeated picking practice, because they don't die with a little bit of picking, unlike some locks. So what these do is also, they take the brunt of any attack. So you are securing something that has got your trowels, your soil, and nothing of any real value in. It's a plastic garden container. Put one of these on it. Why not? You know, they're gonna break this. Get in there and go, huh, there's nothing of value in there. You stick something like that on it, and they're gonna go, not gonna get past that padlock, and they'll snap the hasp. Yeah, they'll break the hinges, and then you've got £200 worth of storage container to replace. So there is such a thing as being over secured. These do have a visual deterrent, but they are vulnerable to the low skill picking attacks, and I would never use them on anything with any real value in. But if there's something that you just want to basically keep closed and keep the occasional opportunist thief out of, then yeah, these are actually, they have a place. We mock them, but they do have a place, and they are quite resilient for external use. This, I really like these ones for garden gates. Why? Because they incorporate the shielded shackle in a fairly cheap and effective design. This one has an ultra crap core. Do not buy this one. It's terrible. But they do come with good cores that will resist basic raking attacks. And very often, trying to prise this thing apart, you're going to destroy the hasp before you destroy the lock. Again, it's one of those situations where all of those different layers of security have got to be up to scratch. These aren't very expensive. I do like these for low security areas where you want to make it too difficult to be bothering. Add a cheap alarm onto this and you're in business. But they're just going to go, nope, too much like hard work, and they'll run away and not bother. The other thing to consider is use a lock that is actually fit for purpose. This is not fit for a garden gate, but it is actually a high security lock. It has a 6-pin advanced core in it. They do take a bit of practice to pick. But why is it so crappy in construction? Well, partly because of the environment that it's meant to be in. You don't want any electric shock risk, but also because it's meant to allow forensic evidence to be left of any tampering. You're not going to pick this with any ease, and any attempts to shim it, and probably won't be shimmable, or cut it or bypass it, are going to leave marks, and that's what's so useful about those. So use a lock that is fit for purpose. These are the last two unprotected shackles that I'm going to show. Oh good, we're already on 9 minutes. Attempting to keep this short didn't work. These are pretty good. They are 5 and 6-pin locks respectively. They've got some heft behind them. There's some gravity in there. You can repin them if you want, which is very useful, especially if you're a cyclist and you just want the same key to open the garden gate, the house, the shed. Great, no problems. And you don't have an unsightly bulge in your lycra, which is always helpful. I don't like those bulges. They look very disturbing. These locks are 20, 30 quid respectively. They're pretty good value, I think. Yes, you can pick them. I can pick them. You can pick this in about a minute if you're skilled. Probably less if you're actually properly skilled, unlike me. But they are not going to be picked by your average shed thief, and that's the point. Moving on to locks that have got protected shackles. I really like these Squire locks. Something to consider, avoid these. These have protected shackles, but they're plastic. Always ensure that the shackle is metal. Otherwise, you're just slowing someone down. Why are these protected? Because the threat is bolt croppers or power tools. That is going to fly off, and the biggest risk is going to be to somebody's eye. So these are probably the locks I would go for if you want a hefty padlock. A really hefty padlock. Again, if your mounting hardware isn't up to scratch, if you haven't got a decent hasp on your shed, there's no point in using this. Yeah, because all it does is add extra stress on that damn thing that's going to be repeated. So there's no point in using what is essentially 90 to 100 quid worth of lock if you're using it on 5 quid of hasp that has exposed screws. So make sure everything's up to scratch. Security is in layers. It's not just about the lock, but try telling that to government agencies. Now, this one, there's a lot of meat in between an angle grinder and that shackle. This one, a little less. They both have 6-pin cores. Lockpicking lawyer will fly through one of these, but takes me about 2 minutes on a good day. On a bad day, I can't pick them. Most thieves go for the destructive approach, and if you are in a situation where you're using these to protect high value assets that might attract those professional thieves, you're going to be using it in layers. And what you might also do is have these repinned with more security pins. To come on to another lock that I should have showed earlier, this is the ABUS titanium. I really like these. They are apparently shimmable. However, if you put them in a situation where it's going to be difficult to get the shims in, etc, etc, they're going to look at that and go, nah, let's choose the neighbour. And that's what it's all about. It's all about your neighbours. Neighbourly love. Send the burglar to your neighbour and not to you. It's so easy. This one is very lightweight. That's what I don't like about it. I think that's why the cost of these things is quite low given the tolerances and complexity of the core. They're quite lightweight and it doesn't give you that initial, now this feels like it's quite secure. You're going to lift that and go, I'll try my hammer on that. Tappy tap tap, it might fly open. There is a deterrent, a visual deterrent factor, which is why these ones still persist. A note on layers. Layers of security are what you want to be aiming for, because you will show someone a padlock and they'll go, oh, I've seen that defeated by X, Y, and Z. And that's true. Every single lock has got its faults. So this is how I secure my bike. These two. This is a very hefty padlock, which is going on a very hefty chain, and that chain is held above the ground, so you can't use the ground as a pivot to get your croppers on it. You're not going to get past this very easily, and if you can, you're going to need to pick that, which it needs a lot of experience, and the odds are your average thief isn't going to have it. And then while you're contending with that, this is probably screaming at you, because this is an alarmed disc lock. Now, it's got a disc detainer core, great. Disc detainers in this day and age, they're effectively, from a pragmatic perspective, unpickable. Yeah? Yes, they can be picked, but the skills and tools are so cheap, so unavailable that people just aren't going to bother. I have actually seen a large business that's outfitted all of their doors, and I do mean everything. They've even got bespoke locks made for these antique doors. Everything with these advanced ASA Abloy disc detainer locks, and probably for the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to be completely pick-proof. But as the pick that lockpicking lawyer and Bosnian Bill made, and the skills begin to propagate, eventually that protection will go away. So yes, something might be unpickable now, but it doesn't mean it's going to be unpickable in the future, because the time and the money will be invested into finding the flaws, creating better picking tools and better picking methods. But this is just a different design that you've got to get through. You've got to have a different set of tools to do it, different set of skills, and it's going to be screaming at you because it's alarmed. So that's 3 layers of security on a bike that is held together with cable ties, glue and duct tape, and has got a sock dangling off it as a vibration damper. They're going to go, no, it's just not worth the hassle, and they're going to steal my neighbour's bike, which is what they did. It was fantastic to see. So if you want to secure a shed, consider what's in there. Consider, do you want them to, crowbar open the door, destroy the door and the frame, and defeat everything but the lock for what's in there? Because that's the effort that they'll have to go to if you put a very high security lock on there. But if it's just some soil and a couple of trowels, put something shitty like this on. Let them break the lock. Be far cheaper than them taking a crowbar to everything else and destroying everything else for something that they're probably not even going to take because it's so cheap and worthless. And if you do want to invest in a lock like this, make sure the hardware that you're attaching it to are befitting such a lock. Time and time again I see, oh, expensive lock, door not correctly mounted, exposed cheap hinges that can be unscrewed from the outside, and things like that. You get a lock that on a door that it's worth over £1,000. It's an incredibly high security door, but because they've not mounted it correctly, or they've skimped and saved on one particular component, you can slip the latch open with a ruler or something like that. So that's my little ramble/rant on domestic padlocks. Think about what you're protecting. Think about what your threat really is. Is it picking? Probably not. Is it low skill picking attacks? Probably. And think about how many layers of security you have. A cheap motion detecting alarm is not expensive, and it might be that buying a £20 lock, I'd probably go for this in the closed shackle version, it's a bit more expensive, but fine. Something like this combined with a £10 alarm is probably a better choice than £100 or whatever this cost.